Mercedes just made a huge statement after Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is, Mercedes reveals they are getting slower while rivals improve during F1 rounds. Russell was second fastest aboard the Mercedes W15 during FP2 at the Jeddah Street Circuit before qualifying in 7th place, but he would only go on to gain 1 position during the 50-lap race. That place came courtesy of one-time leader Lando Norris dropping to 8th after running out of sync, the McLaren driver having stayed out for a longer first stint, while others capitalized by pitting during an early safety car that was required after Aston Martin racer Lance Stroll clouded the barriers and retired. Russell likened the race weekend to the Bahrain season opener. There, teammate Lewis Hamilton led a 1-2 in FP2, Russell then qualified 3rd and finished the GP in 5th. But rather than this dropping back being owed to other teams improving as the round wears on, Russell has attributed it to Mercedes getting slower across the sessions. We're still really trying to understand this car because we have shown true performance at points over the last 2 weekends, said Russell. FP1, straight out of the box, we were top of the timesheets and always in the top 3, FP2, P2. Then, both weekends, the pace just falling away from us. That hasn't been our competitors getting faster. That's been us getting slower, so we need to understand why that is. But it's fine margins now. It's so close with ourselves, McLaren Aston. Charles Leclerc Ferrari is just a smidge ahead. We just need to tap into it a bit more. Russell crossed the line in Saudi Arabia almost 40 seconds behind winner Max Verstappen, with Sergio Perez and Leclerc completing the podium. He was also beaten by McLaren's Oscar Piastri and Fernando Alonso in the sole surviving Aston Martin. Russell and Hamilton had complained about their cars bouncing throughout the weekend, but the former reckoned the problems for the W15 were more widespread. I think there's more to it, when asked by motorsport.com about the primary cause of the performance drop-off. It's so complex these days. These cars are so complicated. When you couple that with the tires are very difficult as well. Right now, I don't have the answers. Russell did, however, maintain that the field remains pretty tight behind clear pace-setter Red Bull. Mercedes chief Toto Wolff was unsparing in his assessment of Mercedes' performance at the second Grand Prix of the 2024 season. Max Verstappen dominated once again to take his 9th consecutive victory, while Lewis Hamilton and George Russell couldn't even sniff the podium. At Mercedes, the Brackley-based team opted for different strategies with their drivers, as they kept Lewis Hamilton on track during the safety car caused by Lance Stroll's crash, while everyone else bar the Brit and Lando Norris came into the pits. Even with differing approaches to the race, both Hamilton and George Russell struggled to get the best out of the W15 in the high-speed sections and struggled to keep up with McLaren and Ferrari. Russell came across the line in 6th, while Hamilton, after finally stopping late in the race for fresh tires, finished 9th and was beaten by debutant Oliver Bearman, who finished an impressive 7th. Speaking with Sky Germany after the race, Mercedes boss Wolff gave his praise to the teenager. "You can see the level the young drivers are on," he said. "The tough school of F3 and F2 get them to the top. I think it's at such a high level because the competition has become so great, and you can see that. He drove a strong last stint." The Austrian then gave a damning assessment on the team's poor form in recent years. "Not good and still so many question marks," he explained. "It's not that we're not trying, but we lost half a second in 3 corners. We are fast on the straights, but we don't know why we do that. We're going around in circles, and now it's certain that there has to be a huge leap to really analyze what's going on here." When asked if the team were trying something different by keeping Hamilton out during the safety car period, Wolff responded, "Yes. Where we were, concreted into the position, that's why we tried something different." The 52-year-old was then asked how they can make the jump and catch their rivals. "It's something in the way we see the car, and if we understand what we've been trying to do for 2 years, then we'll get it done," he replied. The second story is W15 F1 car has fundamental issue which Mercedes don't understand. Mercedes have a fundamental issue with the design of their 2024 F1 car, which they currently don't understand, according to Toto Wolff. It was another disappointing showing from Mercedes at the second round of the season in Saudi Arabia, as George Russell and Lewis Hamilton finished 6th and 9th respectively. After the race, seven-time world champion Hamilton claimed Mercedes still need to make big changes to the W15, which was significantly revamped over the winter. A frustrated Hamilton said it felt like I was in a different category compared to Mercedes's rivals, as he lamented his car's lack of performance through Jeddah's high-speed corners. There is something which we don't understand, Wolff acknowledged. We are quick everywhere else pretty much. We know that we have a smaller rear wing, we're compensating what we're losing through the corners. But it's just at high speed where we're losing all the lap time. I think that's a biggie. There's only so much you can tune here. Our simulations point us in a direction, and this is the kind of setup range that we then choose, where you put the right rear wing on. I think you'll gain a few tenths or not if you get the setup right or wrong, but there's not a massive corridor of performance. It's more a fundamental thing, that we believe that the speed should be there. We measure the downforce, but we don't find it in lap time. But Wolff remains confident that Mercedes can find a swift remedy for their current headache. It's been 2 years that there is something we need to spot, and that's the thing to unlock. We have just got to work, he added. It's not through lack of trying. We've pushed so hard, and we're going to give it a massive, massive go now in the next week, with more data to understand. We are going to come back to Melbourne strong. We are on a mission on this one, and I am 100% sure that we are going to unlock that performance gap. Lewis Hamilton said Mercedes still needs to make big changes if it is to challenge Red Bull for wins this season. Hamilton is set to leave the team at the end of the year for Ferrari, but has pledged to end his Mercedes career on a high. At the opening 2 rounds of the season, he finished 7th in Bahrain and 9th in Saudi Arabia, leaving him 9th in the drivers' standings and 43 points off runaway championship leader Max Verstappen. Mercedes made significant changes to its car over the winter after 2 difficult years under the current technical regulations, but Hamilton believes it has not gone far enough. We have definitely got to make some big changes, he told Sky Sports. We haven't made big enough changes, perhaps. If you look at the 3 teams ahead of us, they still have a different concept to where we are in some areas, so we have got some performance to add, for sure. After finishing 9th in Saudi Arabia, Hamilton believes Mercedes' main issue is a lack of performance in high-speed corners compared to main rivals Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin. The car is good in the low speed and not so bad in the medium, but in the high speed we are miles off, he said. It was like I was in a different category when I was with the other guys around me. It's frustrating for sure to be 3 years in a row, almost in the same position. It's definitely tough, but we'll get our heads down, keep working away, and I know everyone back in the factory is pushing as hard as they can. The third story is, would Max Verstappen really leave Red Bull for Mercedes? In his regular place on the top step of the podium at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, Max Verstappen stood proudly as the now familiar notes of the Dutch national anthem rang out. It was the 19th time in the past 20 races that Verstappen had heard Het Wilhelmus play in his honor. Much to his amusement, his mechanics had found a vantage point above the podium, allowing them to call down toward him. The anthem ended and was followed by ripples of applause before the delegates started to present the trophies. This was Verstappen's 9th win in a row, one shy of the record he set last year for consecutive wins. It was also his 100th podium finish in F1. But the result came at the end of a weekend that had been dominated by doubt over Verstappen's future with Red Bull and whether one of the most dominant driver-team pairings in F1 history could face a parting of ways at the end of the season. Prior to Friday in Jeddah, at no point had the turmoil surrounding Red Bull, the allegations made against Christian Horner, the dismissal of the grievance, the subsequent anonymous leak purported to be linked to the investigation, and Verstappen's father suggesting the team could be torn apart seriously looked like forcing Max out of the team. That changed when it emerged Red Bull's long-serving advisor Helmut Marko was facing scrutiny over his future. Red Bull GmbH, Red Bull Racing's parent company, had questions for Marko over his involvement in the leaks surrounding the Horner investigation, and Marko himself suggested he could be suspended. It was here Verstappen drew a line, pledging his loyalty to Marco and making clear to the world that if he was going to stay at Red Bull, then so would Marco, a man on the opposite side to Horner, amid the ongoing power struggle within the team. Verstappen made his feelings clearest known to the Dutch media, telling them, "I can't continue without him." A little over 24 hours later, as Marco looked up at Verstappen on the podium, the situation appeared to have been diffused. Marco had entered the paddock alongside Oliver Mintzlaff, the managing director of Red Bull GmbH, ahead of their talks. Speaking to Sky Germany after, Marco claimed they'd had a good conversation and there were now no more rumors. "I will stay," Marco said. "I'm very grateful to Max Verstappen for his support. Max Verstappen is the only person who has all of this straight and clear." The fact that doubt about Marco's future led to such a strong reaction from Verstappen proves his influence and significance within the Red Bull setup.